Wolfenstein Youngblood is a first-person identity crisis. Almost every aspect feels either half-baked or laser-focused. This series gripped players for its focus on gameplay and story, but only one of those things got the attention it deserves, and the other is by the numbers. As the fourth entry in Machine Games' Wolfenstein series, the story centers on BJ Blazkowicz's twin daughters Soph and Jess. When BJ goes missing, Soph and Jess fight their way across an 80s-tinged Nazi-controlled France to find answers. So do we ever get any answers? Yeah, but the dramatic tension is effectively thrown out the window when we do. I genuinely think the writers had the outline of the story completed, but never bothered to fill in the blanks. I say that because nothing feels earned. I never got to know any of the characters enough to really care about them, and that includes the twins, which really sucks because they're both charmingly portrayed, but I don't know them. All the game tells me is they're BJ's kids, and they're kinda dorky. It's like when your parents force you to talk to their friend's kid, and they assume you'll get along because you both like basketball. But just because you both like that thing, doesn't mean you'll like each other. Youngblood's story feels like a giant step backward from Wolfenstein 2, both in pacing and its comedy-darkness balance. There are humorous moments in the previous games, but they're a breath of fresh air from the darker ones. Youngblood, on the other hand, is mostly a series of cheesy jokes crammed into pretty cinematics. The narrative is painfully predictable, and never really slows down to let me breathe like previous games did, so everything just feels rushed. For example, a betrayal happens toward the end of the game, but it's never set up or hinted at. The game just expected me to care, but I didn't, and that's because I was never invested in the first place. If I was given more time to get to know these characters, then maybe that turn would have meant something. Instead, I was indifferent. But I think Youngblood's biggest story sin is its villain. General Lothar Brandt has zero personality, and we never really hear much about him aside from the fact that A, he's a Nazi general, and B, he's planning something nefarious. That's it. Which is such a step down from Wolfenstein 2, which had such a great villain who I as a player genuinely hated. This guy just feels like a placeholder. While the game's story is a letdown, one thing Machine Games knows how to do is make a solid first-person shooter. The core mechanics of Youngblood are still stellar. The game handles beautifully and each weapon feels distinct and lets players customize in a lot of cool ways. But there isn't really anything that pushes the boundaries. It's more of the same, but with some RPG elements thrown in as well. There are upgrades and abilities like in Wolfenstein 2, but they're very slightly expanded, and are applied to things like ammo pickup, health, armor, and new abilities to the game such as invisibility and a power stomp. This upgrade system is implemented fairly well and doesn't get in the way of the normal gameplay. Honestly, I wanted more out of this leveling system. Each ability tree is extremely short, and it's possible to get maxed out early on. It's as if Machine Games didn't want to stray too far into RPG land, but that's what makes Youngblood special. Youngblood's enemies are wasted within this leveling system as well. A high-level enemy isn't necessarily more challenging, they just require more bullets to take down. And that makes for a monotonous experience later on. Youngblood is trying too hard to be two very different games. On one hand, it wants to please the fans of previous entries, but on the other hand, it wants to be more like Destiny or The Division. It tries to fulfill the latter by having all of the main quest missions be raid-style missions. Players carve through an obnoxious number of enemies until they reach the end, defeat the big bad guy, and then fight their way out. It's repetitive and there's really no challenge to it. I just ran around in circles until the boss went down and I collected whatever pointless item was in the boss room. I often forgot that I was even playing a Wolfenstein game. And that's because Youngblood is trying so hard to be two things, it doesn't do either of them very well. The game has some strong ideas, but doesn't quite know what to do with them. So the result is a jumbled mess. One thing that isn't messy in Youngblood is the exceptional level design. Every location has numerous different ways to get around, and being able to jump into a random apartment through a window is super satisfying. Players are given enhanced mobility, and the game really encourages using it to navigate through levels. Whether that be through the apartments up above, or searching the sewers down below, there's really no wrong answer. Another thing worth noting is the detail in every street, hallway, and room. There are countless collectibles to find around the world, and looking through each room gives players a little more insight into the world and what's happened since the events of the last game. Now if only that same amount of detail was put into the story. Wolfenstein Youngblood is a co-op focused game, but players don't have to play online to have a full experience. While there are moments I caught myself wishing I was playing with someone, the overall experience isn't tarnished by playing alone. One part of the co-op experience I like is the pep system, which is a fun way for players to give each other health boosts and words of support. It's a minor thing, but a really fun approach to co-op mechanics. Now there is a minor controversy surrounding this game in the form of everybody's favorite punching bag, microtransactions. Yes, Wolfenstein Youngblood has microtransactions, but honestly they're barely there. They're only present for weapon skins, character skins, and emotes. At no point during the game is there a paywall for gameplay-related content. If it's a deal breaker for you that this game has microtransactions, honestly I don't blame you. They're an unfortunate trend in the gaming industry that should go away. But it's important to note that it's not as bad as many are making it out to be. Wolfenstein Youngblood has some good ideas, but Machine Games simply didn't implement them very well, which left me feeling like I was playing two games at once. This is a game that I wanted to like, but it kept getting in its own way. Not only was I left feeling disappointed, but even worse, I felt bored. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. If you want to see more videos like this one, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And as always, I'll see you all eventually.